Hello and welcome back to the Paranormal Podcast. My name's Dan Pasella. I'm your host and lead investigator and co-founder of Orange County, New York Paranormal. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Thank you so much for listening. It's great to see our listens and our watches and our views and our subscriptions go up on all the platforms for podcasts, and also our video stream of this podcast that appears on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. If you're new to the proceedings, welcome. Always great to see and interact with new folks, and go back, listen to some of the old episodes, see what we're all about, because it's been interesting to watch the reactions to our episodes, to our podcast, and it's been a lot of fun. So like, subscribe, review in whatever platform you're watching us, whether it be audio or video. Also, just a little bit of two quick things before we get to the main topic of today's episode. First of all, if you get a chance, we have completely redone our website. If you want to check it out, go to www.orangecountynyparanormal.com. Andrew, our sort of silent member and our webmaster, went in and completely redid the entire website, and he did a great job. It looks really great. So if you haven't yet, go to that website. If you have been on our website, check out the new design. You can also access the podcast from the website now as well. Also coming up, if you happen to be in the area of North Creek, New York, this Friday, which is north of Albany, we're going back to Bark Eater Chocolates for an event we did last summer that was a lot of fun. And that's Friday, July 28th. And go to Bark Eater Chocolates website or social media for ticket availability. What it is, it's basically a fireside thing with telling spooky stuff and paranormal experiences and a paranormal discussion around a fire, and then going through and kind of doing just a very quick run through a haunted location that we have investigated before. We made a video on it. It's available on our YouTube channel and Facebook page, and it's just a lot of fun. It's great to meet new folks and listen to new folks tell us about their experiences, and it's a lot of fun. We did it last summer, and we're going to be back there. So Friday, July 28th in the evening, Bark Eater Chocolates. Check out their website or social media if you're interested in attending that event, and we hope to see some of you there. Speaking of folks we've met along the way, today's episode is an interview, another in our interview series. This time we are going to be talking to the folks from Clifton Paranormal. This is a paranormal group that exists within the Clifton 5 Theater, which we investigated last summer. We got to know them really well. They're great people. And I was fascinated by their journey because they're people who met by working at this movie theater, which happened to be haunted. And while they all come from different paranormal backgrounds in terms of interest and experiences in both the paranormal and investigating the paranormal, I found their journey to becoming their own paranormal group and meeting through the venue to be a really interesting story. And I really wanted to sit down and talk to them. And just so happens, a couple of weeks ago, we were back to do a follow-up investigation of that location. So, before the investigation, we sat down in one of the theaters and had a great discussion with Clifton Paranormal. So, as I said, we're here on location in Huntington, Pennsylvania at the Clifton 5. We have Clifton Paranormal here with us. We're going to be doing an investigation here a little bit, but since we were here, I figured, why not? What's one more case of equipment? Let's bring the podcast stuff out. Let's interview this paranormal group. We talk about it all the time on the podcast about how there are 10,000 groups that do this 10,000 ways. And there are also 10,000 groups that have gotten to where they are in 10,000 different ways. So the interesting people we've met along the way, we do try to bring to you here. So that's why we're here. That's why I immediately thought of inviting Colin, Ariel, and Kirsten on the podcast to talk about their journey. And thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We're honored.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and we're talking about on location. We are in Theater 2. Theater 1. So last time we came from downtown Lyons, we weren't in where we were investigating tonight. We're actually sitting where we're going to be investigating later, which is really cool. So basically, where I like to start is just each of you just get what your background is in just terms of, life and how you got to the Clifton Theater.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I'm originally from Florida, and I grew up close to St. Augustine, Florida, which, if anyone out there listening is familiar with, is one of the oldest cities in the continental U.S. And I was I was obsessed with the paranormal in that area because I just my dad's a big history buff, and I loved the idea of that there's history still left behind in such a location as that. And so I was there all the time. I wanted to go to college there, but it was really expensive, so I opted out of it. But ever since then, I was kind of obsessed with the paranormal. And then I moved up to this area because I have extended family who lives here, and my grandmother needed help. So I said, okay, I'm down. I'll come here and help you out. And my family and I would come up here to visit my grandparents, and we'd always used to come to Clifton because it was a 5-screen movie theater, and we would get the opportunity to see these big name movies for a heck of a lot cheaper than an AMC or anything like such as that. So we took advantage. But just coming in here, even as a teenager, I was just awed by what it looked like and how it was like stepping back in time, and I became obsessed. And I was working here in town and doing some stuff and coming here, and I met Ariel. And I met the old general manager, and she was like, hey, this place is haunted. And I was like, I know, I've heard about it. I had a YouTube series that failed horribly because I just couldn't keep up. And we filmed an episode here that never got released, so don't bother looking for it. I found the old footage just recently, and we had such a great time. And then they ended up hiring my ex, which was cool because I had 2 jobs at the time, and he worked here. And then we broke up, and he left, moved back to his town, and Ariel called me up and was like, could you cover his shifts? And I said, sure, let's do it. And that's how I kind of got in, and here I am 3 years later. So.
Nice. Ariel, how'd you come to be here?
So I'm originally from New York. When I moved here about almost 14 years ago, because Presley's, when I moved here, I met Kirsten, and she became my instant best friend, and we started doing creepy stuff together. And then I went through a divorce and a whole bunch of crazy things, and I ended up starting to work here, and I just fell madly in love with the place. And all these weird things never really happened to me when I first started working here. It was very much like everybody would experience things, and I was like, nothing happens to me. Like, nothing scary goes on. And everybody swears this place is haunted. And, like, you do feel odd feelings here, but I was just like, meh, it's just because people said that. But then eventually, it was during COVID, and we heard the stories were haunted, and at that time we had experienced very few things, but there was things that were absolutely made it true that this place was, haunted. And like he said, his ex had left, and I knew Colin knew the theater business. He was in here all the time. He always wanted a job here, and I was just like, you want to do this? And then when COVID hit, we had nothing to do, and we just started investigating here, and it was how it started. Yeah, and then we started offering ghost tours because it was an income. And then, this place lets wild things happen to us all the time.
And that's the one thing that we had to remember. Like, part of the reason why we started the ghost tours was because, one, we didn't know it was going to take off the way that it did. But when COVID happened and we reopened, we were only allowed to show old movies that were on a tier platform that we could afford.
Yeah.
Because nothing new was coming out, which sounds like a great idea, because I know I'm the type of person that sometimes a movie on a big screen in a movie theater is a lot better than on your screen at home. Unfortunately, it didn't take off as well, and a lot of people weren't coming in. So I sat down with Ariel and I was like, look, like, let's think of something, let's do something. And then we said, you know what, let's figure out a mapping idea of how we would do a tour.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of developed, and it took off.
We started doing tours with our friends so we could take them around. So they were our experiments, and our little test runs. And wild things happened every time we did it, and we started getting really good evidence. And I don't know, it just kind of took off from there with being in the paranormal and stuff like that. But I've been investigating since I was 12 years old in Long Island. We go to Kings Park Insane Asylum and get freaked out. But yeah.
So Kirsten, you got involved in the cinema through Ariel.
Yeah, I was born here. They're all fancy, coming from other places. I've been here, but Ariel's been my best friend for going on 14 years, and I was not into this before Ariel.
I know. She gets so scared.
I'm so scared of the dark. I love it, but
She loves it, but she gets...
I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, she just enjoys it with us.
She's a great, like,
Her
Kristen
reactions are the
has-
best.
I mean, aside from her reactions, which are gold, I realized that Kirsten has a really good gift for researching.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing is that Kirsten, she might not look like it, but she's really very much a millennial. She's very young, and we love her for that. And she has these ways of going online that I've yet to discover,
Yeah,
where
she
she
finds everything
researches
out.
things, and she finds these things, and I'm like,
Hold on,
I
Google.
just know Google. And she's like, no, I went on Zendel, and I looked at the property of when it was done, I looked at the mapping location, then I went to this other realtor website, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And that's how she helps find history of things. And I was like, you are an amazing historian. Like and so that's kind of what we were like, you know what, like this is your jam right here.
Yeah.
You know, help us really, because one thing that is really important to us, especially for this location,
facts.
are historical facts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I feel that when you have a history involved with something, and you have an investigation and people say, well, why did that happen? If we have something that is a part of the history that we know why that happened because we've done our research, we can answer that for you, and that makes us feel really good.
Yeah.
And Kirsten has really helped a lot with that by really helping out with the history of certain locations, not only here, but other places that we've investigated.
Yeah, that's true.
So in terms of the chicken and the egg, your interest in the paranormal predates
Oh,
being
yeah.
here.
Yes.
Yeah,
All three of
mine starts when I was a kid. My dad always loved that kind of stuff, so he's the one that got me into all the creepy things. We used to watch, like Army of Darkness as a small child for like a loving family night, and we'd make frikadellins off
Shop
sit
smart,
down.
shop
Yeah,
that
you know.
smart.
Yes. So yeah, and I got to meet Bruce Campbell actually at a con I did, and he made fun of me, and it was like literally the joy of my life. I was like, oh my God, Bruce Campbell made fun of me. My father was like, that's amazing.
I have a wedding gift from one of my best friends that was a Bruce Campbell book
Oh,
that
cool.
he got signed, and it said on the inside it says, "Hey Dan, I hear you're getting married. Sorry, buddy, Bruce Campbell." So
He's funny.
Yeah, he's a very funny guy.
Yeah, he really is.
So, interest in the paranormal, working in a haunted place. You talked about COVID and sort of that sort of starting the idea, but how did all that evolve into Clifton Paranormal?
I mean, I've always loved the paranormal ever since I was a small child. Colin's always been drawn to it. His family, very much, what paranormal gravitates to. I mean, in his blood, and for Kirsten,
I've always been scared
yeah,
of
she's
it.
always been scared. So I've always enjoyed watching her get freaked out because I want her to love it. I find history just amazing,
I love it.
and I find the fact that without a physical body, without eardrums, without vocal cords, we can still communicate with people. So it makes me believe that there has to be so much more out there if you look at it in that physical aspect. So, I mean, it's just the pure love of the field, and I would love to help people, you know, and that was kind of our goal, was to do this together and make it a big thing.
So you have your headquarters here,
Yeah.
inside a haunted location, and that in my travels anyway, in our travels over the last 7 or 8 years, that you're the only crew we've really run into that actually
Really?
physically has an office in a haunted location that it's not your house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
no.
nowhere else to put it, really.
And I'm curious, what challenges come with that? Because you all work here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what challenges that folks may not think about come from the fact that you're headquartered in a haunted location, but you actually also work here?
I mean, wild things happen to us all the time
Yeah.
here. So sometimes Kirsten will not go in any theaters alone without lights on.
4 and 5, I'll go in.
Okay, 4 and 5, she'll go in.
Rarely.
There you go.
Here,
4.
Yeah.
And don't watch our video.
Yeah.
From last year.
Rarely.
That's what I'm
no.
saying.
Reasons why.
I mean, we literally just had, Kirsten and I literally just had an experience last week
Yeah, in the
walking
back
the hallway
hallway.
of 4 and 5, and for the rest of the time, she was like, I'm not going back there by myself.
No, thank you.
But I mean, like, for one thing that I know, it's to be an employee and then also like do stuff. So I know in between shows, like I will go upstairs and hop on my laptop and start to review evidence.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for saying this in a sense. I try not to do it as much as I was doing it, but I was trying to get that first episode released. I was really focused on that. But if we had another employee, I would be like, yeah, I'll come down and watch because that's just why you clean the theater. And I would kind of like still focus on my computer a little bit and watch the camera.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I saw that on our cameras.
Yeah. But I was so focused because once again, like we're working, but we're also trying to watch the evidence and trying to get everything because this is where our headquarters is located. But I try to make up for it, you know.
Yeah, because you're what a lot of people who are wanting to get into being an investigator or wanting to get into paranormal, they would see your situation and be like, oh my goodness, I would never leave. Even
Yeah.
though we all know eventually you get used to it.
We're here
and-
all day, every day.
But at the same time, it had to be difficult at first to put the investigator eyes away to do your job and
Yeah.
live your life and not constantly be all senses on alert all the time.
I mean, I think the spirits in the building know us now, so like they do things to us, but usually, I don't know, it's only at certain times. I mean, but honestly, it really does happen
We got
anytime.
Colin's name, I think.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
Well, when you
You'll
guys
get
were
our
first
names.
here,
Yeah. Other
That was the
teams-
first time, though, I think you said. It
It
probably
was.
has happened since.
I
but it
have
was,
never heard my name come across a Phasma box before, and the first time was in theater too. And
after
we
you
had that on
sang.
camera as well.
We had it in theater 4.
Yeah, it was last
was
year in
after,
July,
yeah. It was
and
after
it happened
that.
a couple of times again on.
Yeah.
But the weird part is that it now, granted, the Phasma box company, it's the same. The same machine, but they were using it on their tablet. It wasn't
Yeah.
my computer.
Yeah.
And my name came across it.
Their
and then
product.
on my computer, when we were in 4, like months later, my name was coming across again. But as we know with the Phasma box, there's a word bank. But it's interesting to me that it was on their tablet, and
Yeah.
then we have it on a different, completely different device
For-
that it happened on, to where it's a different word bank. So it's interesting.
For anyone listening who isn't aware, the Phasma box is a communication tool that we use a lot in paranormal investigation
Yeah.
that allows spirits to manipulate chopped up sound bars into words. And very much like a spirit box, it gives you voices in real time. And it's very reverb-y. In fact, I like to use it for events because
Yeah.
it gets everybody involved, and
Yeah.
most people get really annoyed with the spirit box, including most investigators. So, but the Phasma box is a little more user friendly.
Yeah.
But, that's what Colin's name came through. If you ever watch any of our videos, that you'll see that we do use that a lot.
And my name, it's a British Irish name, so it's not originally an American name.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, it's very common now, but when I'm a child of the '80s, Colin Farrell wasn't in America yet. Colin Firth wasn't
Colin.
here either. So I was the only Colin like growing up, and
Yeah,
so to hear
that's
my
it in
name,
life.
yeah,
That was
and
it.
I was the only one.
Only
in
one
Florida.
ever.
I was the only one ever in Florida, and so to hear my name across a Phasma box,
Yeah.
that we know is a preloaded word bank with very Americanized words and names, I mean, my face dropped because I had never
Yeah, Colin
heard
isn't
it.
my name.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good video footage when we shot that. His face was fun.
Yeah.
So you obviously you're based here.
Yeah.
Passionate about this location. You have to be. It's for all intents and purposes, it's your home. It's
It
your
really is.
location. And I do know you have other groups come in.
Yes.
So I asked this when we had the general director of the Museum of Wayne County History on several episodes ago. I asked her what some of the best experiences with other groups were and some of the worst
I have some of the
experiences.
worst
But I would
experiences, I'll
like to
tell you
start
about.
with what has been the benefit of having different groups come in, and is there anything in particular that, like, after somebody came through, you're like, you know what, that's a good idea, let's start doing that, or hey, let's incorporate that? Because when we work with other groups, we always take something away.
Yeah.
So I was just curious. So,
We-
like, the best experiences of that.
We've been super, super fortunate. I mean, we've met some of the most amazing investigators, and we take a little bit of their knowledge from all. I mean, we really are very fortunate in this field. We've met some phenomenal people, had phenomenal people investigate here. Some of the, I would say, Bearded Paranormal with some of their
about to say,
equipment. They've taught us a lot with their equipment. I like the way they move and think. They're good cookies. I mean.
RTO.
RTL, I mean,
Mary
Mary
Jo,
Jo, I mean, yeah, Mary Jo,
Tammy, Chris
Rachel
Hammond.
and Kevin, these are, Bailey and all them. They're wonderful people that truly have guided us with a lot of things. Just even if it's just small little things, like even the way they investigate, the way they only use certain keywords, so you know it's not in the system, and the way they do things. They're just, we really are a lucky, fortunate group.
yeah.
We've met some amazing people.
I mean, this one over here taught me something that I never knew, and like it. So originally, like her and I went to when we very much first started. We went to Lake Conneaut.
Oh,
There
I
was
love that
ghosts in
place.
that. and we went to one of their events, and that's kind of where we came up with the name Clifton. I actually presented it to her, and she was like, "I don't want to be named that."
I was like, "It's the building."
It's the building, and so we thought of other stuff.
And that's
really
just the only thing that stuck, and we ended up all loving it. I was like, you know what, you're right. That actually is a really good name.
But we were there, and one of the investigators asked a question, and I remember immediately, I said, Ariel has asked that question before because she taught it to me. And if I remember correctly, you might have taught it to the investigator, but I'm not sure. But she asked, who's the president?
Oh, yeah, that's my main thing, because I think that's a good way to figure out what time period they're from.
It was so smart. I know it sounds really silly that I was so awed by such a regular question, but it just opened my mind to be like, that is such a great question.
But that's an easy way to time zone people.
To time zone things, because presidents are 4 to 8 years, so it gives you an exact area. And I was like, that is such a genius question that I learned from her doing Lake Conneaut.
Oh my God, girl!
I mean, that's just
what?
That's
So
my
just
own
an example
partner in crime.
of something that you picked up from other folks that have worked with. That's great. And you have a unique opportunity to do that in a way that very few groups get to do.
Yeah, we're very thankful. I know I am very, very thankful for my job, for this place. I mean, it really has healed a lot of sadness in my life. This place has really given me a good reason,
So without naming names, have you had some bad experiences?
Oh,
with
I could
folks
tell
coming
you
through?
some bad experiences. I don't mind saying names either, but for Colin's sake,
I will beep them out if you say them. So
okay, I won't say them. I'll say it to you later, though.
We're from New York. I don't know anybody down here.
Okay, good, because you'll know exactly who I'm talking about then. So we've had a group of people. Oh, now I feel like I shouldn't say it, because they'll know who they are.
You can say that one. I thought you meant the other one, but you can say the first one.
They have to pick between them. This is
because they're not even. I don't think they're a group anymore.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
It's okay. Rhea had trouble. There were so many for Wayne County.
I have
she had
two
trouble
of them, and I think we have the two, but the other one would be.
Yeah,
that would be your third one, but
you just say your first two, and I'll say that last one.
So we had a group in here that was very male oriented, and it was. Don't get me wrong. Like when they first came here, they were very, very organized, which I love organization. I get a boner from it. I know we have to keep things like super clean. I'm so sorry I said that out loud. I didn't realize.
I do too, though.
But so. They had the camera set up. They had their screen set up in our lobby.
You thought it was like a real production company coming in.
And it looked so good. But as the night progressed, I had realized that their founder was very misogynistic, and then also a very authoritative, which I understood came from his background, but at the same time, this is not your place. You know what I'm saying? And like he was very like in the beginning it was great, but towards the end of the night, I remember me and another person, Jan. We had Jan with us at that time, and listen, at 4 o'clock, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sometimes you get the giggles. It just kind of happens. And we were back in Theater 4, and he was talking, and then Jan and I were asking questions, and then Jan and I started to get the giggles a little bit because we were tired. And he stops what he's doing, stares at us, and he goes, "Can you guys just go over to Theater 5 and find something to do?" And I was just kind of like, and I just giggled. I giggled, and I went, okay, and then walked away. But in my head, I'm like, did he just bark me around in my own building? Like, I was like, okay, you know what? It's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm really not going to worry about it. Then he had us watch the camera feeds out in the lobby.
Oh,
like,
he forced us to. He said, you guys have to sit if you're going to be here and
he was
help.
like, if you're going to help us out, then sit here and watch our camera feeds.
So they didn't exactly.
I'm like,
you weren't exactly
I'm working
invited.
this building. You're only in this building because of me. Get the hell out of here.
And they were one of the first teams.
You know exactly what we're talking
ever
about.
came
that
here.
That can. We've had experiences where that poisons the well for all. So
it
kudos
does,
to you
but
folks
you know
for
what?
allowing
That
people
team
back.
split up, and the good people left and went and are doing other good things.
Yes.
And the individuals are just drowning in their own misery. So when you're a bad person, it just comes back on you. It's karma.
Yeah, they. I'm not 110% sure. I know. We did another event with them that they invited us out to.
That was amazing.
Yeah, and it was amazing, and that's where we met Mary.
And that's where I met
Jo
Mary
at.
Jo Chudley.
And we had a great time, but after that, he was so controlling with other aspects of what we were doing as a team. And I finally had to tell him, look, dude, I'm an adult. I know I don't look it, but I'm an adult and I can make my own decisions. I was like, I said my first job, I work for the government. Before I go to a location, if it is abandoned, I do check to make sure that we're allowed to be there. I'm not going to put me or the team or anyone's safety, I'm not going to do that, because that was one thing that he was worried about. And it became a really bad issue. And then the second issue that we had was with a team that ended up stealing over $1,200 from us.
Oh, yes. We had an event here, and it's to save this building.
Yeah.
And this team, where were they from?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. They're from North Carolina. They're disgusting.
They stole money.
They stole.
Yes.
They took all the money from the event,
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite, and never gave it to us to save the building.
So
we were
it-
supposed to get,
It was over $1,200.
and
Oh
then
my
the founder of that, the very following week, booked himself a Disney trip, and it literally came to the exact same price at the money that was taken.
I hope he listens to this too.
I hope he does too, because he knows he's a disgusting
Yeah.
individual.
So I mean, but here's the setup.
I've
for
never
that.
heard of that.
Yeah,
that
here's-
is.
Let me
that
tell
is
you something.
That's low.
We learned things from this. I will admit,
we had to
did
ban
learn.
them from the event because of that.
Well, it wasn't because of that.
It was because of multiple
it
other
was-
things, but-
Yes, but essentially, a good friend of ours had heard that we were in desperate need, and he said, "Hey, look, we met some awesome people at the Gettysfield Bash, and we want to introduce you to them and see." But we're like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah.
And the guy called me up, and he was like, "Oh, I know all this talent. We'll get them there. We'll have this event, and we'll get all the proceeds to you." And we're like, "Oh my God, that's awesome." And then I remember he booked us the talent, which was Mustafa Gaddaleri and April Bissett.
Yeah.
And we were super excited. And I was asking him questions just because here's my thing. I've never dealt with quote unquote celebrities. I don't know who's celebrity, who's not. I don't know how to treat people. I treat people with respect. That's just how
That
it is
should be
to
enough.
me.
Yeah.
And I was asking him if these celebrities needed anything, and he wasn't answering me. So I reached out to April because in her contract we needed to pay for her hotel, which is fine.
Yeah, a lot of people
A
have
lot of
that.
people do
It's
that.
very normal.
And so I reached out to her via Facebook, and I was like, "Do you need anything else? Like, can I get you anything? Do you want green M&Ms? Like, what? Anything we can do." Made a little joke, and she responded. She was super nice about
Yeah.
it. And then I let this person know that I had reached out, and he was like, "Don't you ever
Yeah.
contact the talent. You can
Don't you
never
ever
do
speak to a
that."
celebrity.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." Like, honestly, I was
Then
like,
he messaged April and apologized. She's like, I don't
Yeah.
care. She was like, well, you can talk to me.
And
She's
that-
like, I don't care at all.
yeah, and that was like, what's
She ended up going out to breakfast and hanging out with us like the whole time. So clearly she didn't care.
And in my head, I was like, "Oh Lord, I'm stepping on toes. I'm already messing this up for us," which was like such a big fear of mine that we were going to fail because of something that I was doing. And then we started FaceTiming with the Ray, who was the promotional
Flumeri.
with
Flumeri.
Flumeri, who was the talent agent, the promotional agent for April and Mustafa. And he had messaged us to say, "This guy's an idiot.
Yeah, and he's like, he's really scamming you.
He's scamming you. There's
Like,
something not
Flameri
right."
was looking out for us because if they hadn't have done that, they would have got the rest of the money, and there was more money to be made. You know what
So
I'm saying?
this guy set up the Eventbrite. We were selling tickets, and then probably about a week or so before the Eventbrite. Now we have been doing tours for just about a year, and
At that time.
and I said, "Okay, here's how we do it." One, he wanted to cut our historical aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I said, "No. I said that is the one thing that is so important to us is the history and the time that we put forward into this building.
We've put
We're not
hundreds of
cutting that.
hours into
Yeah.
this.
And that was something we discussed months prior setting up the event.
Can't talk to the past without knowing them.
Yes. And then all of a sudden he wanted to save time and kind of cut it. And I was like, "No, we can't do that." And then he said we couldn't have walkie-talkies.
He said it was so,
So
unprofessional
unprofessional.
to have
It was
walkie-talkies.
So unprofessional.
No other investigative team ever has used that, and if they do, the trash. So
And I told him,
It's
I
good
was
to
like,
know.
I said, "How are we supposed?" Because we would round robin, right?
I mean, I get that.
This is a big building.
From a technical standpoint, walkie-talkies mess with K2s sometimes.
yeah, that's why you
Yes.
But
turn
as
them
long
off.
as you know what it is.
Yeah.
Correct. Well,
for
and-
safety reasons, if
and-
you
and-
have multiple teams, I
Which
think
we
there's
did.
a bunch
We did.
of
Well,
reasons.
because
And we
I
had
mean,
like
security
60
and
people, and we had
everything else.
security.
you have to have that for
And
safety.
we
Yeah.
round robin, we rotate towards haunted location, haunted location, haunted location, because we're a big building. And so I asked him, I said, "Well, how are we supposed to know to rotate? Smoke signals? Like, what light? Do you want to shine a
He's
light?"
like, you'll just know.
And he was like, "Well, then you need to tell your tour guide to keep an eye on the time." And I was like,
That's not how that
I
works,
was like,
buddy.
"Okay, that's not how that." And he wanted to argue with me consistently. And then we had a friend of ours reach out and say, "Hey, look, I had a phone call with this person, and he had some not kind things to say about interactions with you. And I won't go through that on here because it was very not nice things to say. So we said, you know what?
I want to say what he said. He was making gay people.
He was, yes. He was making fun of my sexual orientation, which, have a ball.
Which I think that should be put out there because he knows exactly who we're talking about.
It's fine because people look at me and sit there and say, you know what? Like, he is so nice. He's so this. And I'll still hit you. I choose to be this way because I like to be a
I
happy
do
person.
not expect Colin to say that.
I will throw a punch. It's not a problem. You don't know me. But so we spoke with Ray, and Ray said, look, I have to pull the talent if we can't get this person out of there. And honestly,
yeah, because the talent didn't want. The talent was like,
so
no
bad.
way, because April did not agree with the homophobic comments.
Yeah.
Mustafa definitely was not with that. The talent themselves were offended by the things that this man was saying
Good
about
for them.
other human beings.
Good for them for making a stand.
Yeah, and that was very righteous of both
And
of
we
them.
had to sit there. I thought there's someone behind us, and that's the broom sitting over there. But we had
I'd
to
let
sit
you know.
there. We had to sit there and go, what's more important? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And then it also came down to, like, we were wristbanding people, with color so they can be signed to a group, and he wanted to change that. Be like, oh, we'll wristband them after the movie. They'll group themselves. And I was like, we've been doing this for a year. Like, we know what
it
works
works
and
here.
what doesn't.
Plus, Flammary, thank
goodness
for them because they sent out 4 employees to us, which helped us organize and do everything.
Pat Dallas, Kevin, and Rachel.
They saved our butts.
Godsend.
They taught us how to run events.
Yes.
And Ray told me, he was like, Colin, everything you were doing, walkie-talkies, wristbands, is the right way
He's like,
to
you're
do
doing
it.
such a good. They were very
You know what
encouraging.
you're
That's
doing.
one team I can say that we've learned a lot from.
Yes.
Is
There's,
RTL Flammary Productions.
Running events is a bit
It's
of an
different.
art
It
form.
is. It's
an art
very
form.
different
You
than
have
just
to-
doing certain things.
Yeah,
'cause-
and some are good, some are not.
yeah.
Well,
Hopefully we're
the
okay.
thing is that he,
we're
what
good.
really narrowed it down was that he didn't want to give me the names of the people who signed up via
Yeah, he
Eventbrite.
said we're not allowed to know their names.
I
and
wasn't
stuff.
allowed to know their names. And finally, after all this, it was 2 days before the event, and I sent him a very professional email. It was very kind. There was no bad language whatsoever. And I told him, unfortunately, we have to cut our ties, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, he called me. He was very angry. He spoke with Ariel.
He spoke with me.
And then he was very professional and was like, I understand, yada, yada, yada. We'll make sure all the money goes to you. This is what's been raised, yada, yada. I said, okay, thank you
We're not
very
even
much.
going to take a cut. Like, we really did want to save you. We're so sorry about the things that happened.
And then his business partner had messaged me and said, hey, look, I'm so sorry this had happened, but I'm noticing some repeat things. We're not getting repeat clients, and we don't know why. What happened? Could you give me details?
He was like, why aren't we allowed at the event?
Yeah, because the partner didn't know. So
And then he said they was
after-
blocked out of the bank account.
Well, and so I explained to the partner everything that happened. The partner was like, well, this might explain why we don't have repeat customers. Maybe this other person is offending them, all this kind of stuff. He was like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. He was like, I'm going to make sure you guys get this check from the GoFundMe, or not the GoFundMe, but the Eventbrite, blah, 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 everything. I'm going to change He was like, I've changed the passwords so that way this guy can't get into it. The very next day, I get a message from the business partner saying he got the passwords, he's into it, the money's gone. He locked me out of it. I think it was a plot, actually.
Yeah, I think it was just so that we wouldn't be mad or do anything to the team.
It seemed very coincidental that this guy changed everything, and then all of a sudden, the next day, the other guy got into it. But then the next weekend, they went to Disney.
And everything was paid
convenient.
for a man that doesn't have a job.
Yeah. And then he ended up, we spoke with this to Flammary when we went to go see them at the Beacon. And the very next day, I got an email from this man because we were driving back and I got an email. And he was like, don't you ever speak about, so he has a mole somewhere, I don't know. But he was like, I don't want you speaking about this, blah, blah, blah. I am still in, he like sent me emails of legal documentation of his bank accounts, which showed the money going into his bank account, but never showed it leaving. I was like, this doesn't prove anything, like, at all.
Right.
He said the Eventbrite is locked and he is in legal custody with it, but he's still trying to get the money to us. And it's been 2 years?
2 years. Well, you'll get it soon.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's coming any day now.
So-
Any day.
So out to the audience, if you listen to the episode I did a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the difficulties in booking locations as a paranormal group. What you just heard is part of the reason why it's so difficult to book locations, because not everyone is doing everything for the right reasons, and that is part of the problem. My next question, I'm sure the audience's question would be, does Kirsten talk? But the
Sometimes.
Sometimes I do.
but my next question is because, okay, you have a location that you know every square inch of. You are aware of most of the spirits, if not all of them. They'll never know what is or is not making itself known. What led to your decision to take the step to investigate other places?
I mean, I've always investigated other places. I've been doing investigations, like I said, since I was younger. So I want to see what else is out there.
And
She
maybe
grabs me
maybe
and I tag
Colin and
along.
Kirsten then. That's a more because you had this going on.
Yeah.
Ariel. But how about you two? Did you
She
I make her
takes
do
me
things.
along.
she just played the flute and you
Yeah,
guys
she
went
just
with her?
follow. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of, I mean, like, because our thing was that, because Ariel was here a year before I was hired, and then I was hired the year, and then I was here a year, and then Kirsten was fine. Because I've known Kirsten, for 4 years now,
Yes.
about 4 years, and she was always out here, with her beautiful children, walking outside, talking to Kirsten, and then we would go and hang out. And I've been wondering for so long, I was like, when is she going to work at the theater with us? Because
Dave thought
Dave
she
thought I
worked
worked
here
here.
for the longest. I'm like, Dave, he doesn't work
Dave's
here
the
But
yet.
also, we've been to events that we could have sworn Kirsten was at, and
Yes.
she's not there.
But
that's
I
what
mean,
it's-
I do that all the time.
But we're around each other so frequently that it's like we just in our minds
We
you're
always
there.
assume each other is
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I do too. I do it the worst, I think, because I
Yeah.
tell stories. I'm like, yeah.
But I think that we wanted to not only get this place out there as a place to not only get an investigation, or if you're into the paranormal, but come see a movie in an old school revival house. I mean, granted, we don't have beds for you to lay in like AMC.
Right.
We've got springy chairs to poke your butts with, but it's all about
It's a good
the
time.
nostalgia.
Absolutely.
We have the best popcorn, hands down, and we've got the fountain drinks. We've got everything you've ever wanted from an old school revival movie
Everything
house,
you've
which is
ever
what I love.
wanted,
Everything you ever
everything.
wanted. We got a restaurant next door too, but I definitely wanted to get us out there to other investigations to not only show what we can do as Clifton Paranormal, because we're all there's another member of us who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, but we are such different people, but also the same at
Yeah.
the same time, that we have such different ways of investigating that every time that I go over evidence, I'm so impressed with what each person does. Something that I wouldn't think about or think outside the box, that I'm like, this is what makes us such a great team. But I wanted people to come here and be like, hey, look, like, here's this team. And that's why we named ourselves Clifton Paranormal. We wanted people to remember we are part of this place.
Yeah.
We will go down in history with this place no matter what happens to it. We are going to outsource ourselves as part of the Clifton.
Yeah, I agree.
So obviously, Ariel, you've done investigations in the past outside of here, but Kirsten and Colin, how did you have to change your techniques going to a place where now you don't know who the spirits are? You don't know every square inch, every nook and cranny. How did you have to evolve as an investigator to do that, to get results?
Investigated other places prior to me.
I have, but it hasn't been
Like
a
this.
professional
Yeah.
type of, because I sounds weird, but we deem ourselves professionals.
mean,
But it's
kinda.
always, like when I was not even younger, like when I lived in Florida, there's an old school public school, or PS 84, which was a reputable haunted wasn't torn down, but building, and we'd break into it all the time. But it was like,
Yeah, we used to break
Don't
into
break in.
Yeah, no,
by
Don't
the way,
break
those who are
in.
listening.
Don't do illegal things.
don't do
But
illegal things,
If you don't
but-
get caught and you don't destroy
Yeah.
anything, you're not
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
anything wrong.
It was just because the place had a reputation for being haunted, and I wanted to know why. So we would kind of get into it and look around and then leave. But to me, that was an investigation, and I would do little things like that. But I guess professionally, it started, with my wannabe YouTube series that didn't go anywhere. But I started here because that was like the very first time that my YouTube series went outside my basement to a location. And it was here. So like this place is always going to be a home for me.
So each one of you, if you can give me
I know.
one,
I'm getting a little freaked out.
give me your most memorable paranormal experience in this building.
I
One.
can talk for this one. I can. Okay.
Good, you go first.
Okay, guys.
Okay, so we have doppelganger activity here, and I've never been more scared in my entire life, and I get scared of everything. You could say boo too roughly, and I'd probably freak out. But Ariel, I watched Ariel, what I thought was Ariel, go down the hallway to 4 and 5, and I thought she was trying to scare me because she was like, scurrying along.
I don't do that.
I chased her up through the hallway and down through the door to Theater 5, and she was not there. Ariel was on the other side of the building. And I was so scared coming out and realizing, oh my God, where did she go? Like, what is happening? I was terrified.
I wasn't anywhere near you. And then as she's like walking
I was so
out,
mad at her.
I'm walking as I'm looking for her, and I walk into her, and she's like, "You were over there, and you were hiding." And I was like, "I was not." And she was like, "Yes, you were. You were trying to scare me." And I was like, "No, I literally wasn't there."
I was convinced. Very scary.
It was.
Ariel?
I've had a few, but I think the most terrifying one was when we had Bearded Paranormal here. And it was actually in this theater.
In Theater 1.
Right, probably about the third or fourth row back, right in between there. And the Bearded Paranormal, they brought their daughter, and they have a psychic on their group, Terry, and Colin and me are all standing together, like in like a little like half circle. And I'm standing there, and I have the speaker in my hand and another device. And I'm standing there, and I'm facing sideways, and I feel something grab me and yell in my ear, "Get." But it wasn't just like, it was the angriest voice I've ever heard in my entire life. It sent such fear into me that I still have problems coming in this theater. And I'm the general manager here. Yeah, and I'm the general manager here, so I have to open up by myself. There's times I have to close by myself. But
Kirsten, I can see behind you, so don't worry about it.
I know, but
When this experience happened to her, I was standing less than a foot away. I heard nothing. She looked at me and she goes, take it, because she didn't want to throw someone else's equipment.
I went outside and cried, and I was consoled by like a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, she just handed it to me and screamed, she didn't scream, but she's like, take it,
I don't know.
She ran out the door.
And I don't get scared. I wander. They always yell at me during investigations because I don't care where we are. I'll just wander
That's why
away.
we have walkies.
Yeah, I am one of the reasons, and I'm also one of the reasons Colin gets banned from TikTok. Yeah. But, yeah, no, that was probably the most terrifying event. And I will say one more, because I was upstairs in the office, and in the office, Dave has a door, a closet door.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an umbrella on it. And by the force of gravity, if you pick up an umbrella, it's just going to drop right back down. Well, I'm sitting up there. I had taken off my glasses. I'm facing an old coworker here, and I'm like rubbing my eyes. I go to put my glasses back on, and you hear boom. And the umbrella had lifted up and slammed back down, and then it started violently swinging side to side. It was the coolest thing I've ever witnessed, paranormal-wise. That was, it wasn't scary. It was quite amazing to see this happen in front of me. But those are probably the two of the events here that are, wow.
Colin?
So sometimes when I give tours, even if something scary happens, I try to be the stoic one and not show that I am incredibly creeped out.
He has to be, because I'm flipping the hell out, freaking out.
I have to say, so there was one, and actually the one instance that really comes to mind for me is I was here in Theater 1, and I had two people who signed up for a tour, and this was probably like at the end of October or November last year, and I didn't come into one for a week because it genuinely freaked me out. And we were standing back there, roughly where Ariel had pointed, and the boyfriend had walked down to where we are right now, and we heard him start to say something. And I was just going over the history of the place, and I had stopped because he wanted to say something, and we waited. And he didn't say anything. So the girlfriend says, "Baby, what did you say?" And he was like, "I didn't say anything." And I was like, okay, well, maybe it was not that big of a deal. So he came back up, and I'm standing there talking about the history. And I take a breath, and from my left ear is now facing the screen and over here, I heard, "Hey!" And I literally panned my flashlight over because I thought there was a person standing here wanting to ask me a question, because it was such a natural thing to happen, and they didn't hear it because I just stopped talking, panned my flashlight, and go, "Did you guys hear that?" And they went, "No." And I got so freaked out in that moment because I was just kind of like, normally when you hear a disembodied voice, everyone else usually hears it with you. At least that's the experience we've had, lately. Not here, but in other locations. So the fact that no one else heard that, and it sounded like someone was standing over here by this exit door and went, "Hey," like trying to grab my attention for whatever reason, and no one else heard it. It shook me because that had not happened here ever to me. And then the other experience that I had, and a lot of the stuff happens sometimes when I'm by myself, but Kirsten and I in the summer were cleaning up the attic space to make it a livable, in a sense, for us to do our research, for us to record things and all that kind of stuff. And we were cleaning it, and there is a set of stairs that go up to a height and crawl space that goes above Theater 2. And I thought she was in that area, and apparently she wasn't. She was downstairs. I heard footsteps come down. They're like wooden steps that were built.
Yeah.
So they're very hollow sounding. And I heard the thud, 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 thud.
It's a very distinct sound.
Very distinct sound of someone coming down the steps. And that little door was closed. And I went, but no one came out the door. And I went, hey, Kirsten. And she answers me from downstairs. And I went, never mind. And then I just ran downstairs because I was like, I heard complete set of feet come down those steps.
Me and Kirsten were up there, and we're leaving the attic out of our office. Oof. And from to the side from behind us, we heard somebody go, hey. And then it whispered something else.
Fell down the steps.
She broke my elbow.
Oh.
I'm telling you.
That was scary, though.
Yeah, trust me, we have a thing with stairs in our universe too. Emily was once pushed down a flight of stairs at Burlington Prison and
oh my gosh,
pushed through me, actually through me, took me out. I'm a load. I'm hard to move. So we have whenever we hear stair stories, we always
I always am cautious of stairs other places because you do hear traumatic stories of people getting pushed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were just at where was I? We were at what theater was I at? The Rapids Theater in Niagara Falls.
Oh, yeah, with Nick Groff.
Yeah, my husband was just on the show that Nick Groff has, Death Walker. We were up there with Nick and them, and we were recording the episode, and we were doing a tour of the building, and they said, well, be careful on the stairs, because one of the reports is that, people get pushed down them. So I was like, well, let me hold the railing.
Well, that's what Emily gets mad at me. I'm like, railing.
Yeah,
railing.
no, you really do
Oh,
gotta
you
be careful.
did say that when you guys were here last summer, when we went up we went up to the attic, and he kept saying railing, and in my head I'm like, yeah, there's a rail. Why does he keep? I didn't know why you never told me why you kept saying it.
This was before, as I've said on the podcast before, the most important piece of paranormal equipment is the vest, and this is before the vest, so you don't have a bunch of equipment in your hands all the time. So, where can the folks listening to this find Clifton Paranormal?
Well,
Where
you
can
can
we find you?
You can find us on TikTok.
Facebook, TikTok.
Our handle is Clifton Paranormal, and just about everything except Instagram. We don't have an Instagram. I'm probably going to deem that to Kirsten or someone a little bit more millennial than I am. Look, Instagram has changed so much for me that I've now surpassed it to the point where I don't understand it. And that's saying a lot for me because I try to remain with the times. But TikTok, we are Clifton Paranormal. Facebook, we are Clifton Paranormal. And we just released our first YouTube yesterday, which is also under Clifton Paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be out a couple of weeks, but by the time this gets published.
Yes.
Just as importantly, I'm sure to you, and this always hits near and dear home to me too, because the reason that we do this is for history.
Yeah.
Old classic movie theaters have trouble staying around and staying in business and competing. How can anyone listening to this help the Clifton 5 Theater?
So we have a GoFundMe page. It's Save the Clifton, I believe it just is. It's the Huntington Clifton. You can mail us checks. You can come here as a patron. That's a huge help. And
I believe that's on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
We donated to it.
Thank you. But everything goes right back to the building. We're doing everything we can to save it, but like I said, you could come here. Donations are always welcome. Some people mail us checks, or they do it through the GoFundMe. But I mean, those are the ways to help.
And come on a tour.
Yeah, come on a tour. We do tours here. They're not expensive. They're $10 a person.
And for those of you who aren't aware, we're just outside of Altoona and State College, Pennsylvania. So we're pretty much 3 hours from everywhere in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's
where we're
true.
at right now. I guess this would be considered more on the Philadelphia side.
Yeah.
And we'll work with anyone really in that sense. I know there are some people.
You have us here. That's proof.
Yeah, but also I know that my schedule from last year to this year has kind of in a sense completely changed. Like last year I didn't have weekends free. and I couldn't really do tours on the weekend. So we were having people do tours throughout the week. But now that my schedule's changed, I'm now more available on weekends. But so we're very flexible. If you want to come up here and say, hey, can I get a tour on a Wednesday night?
Yeah, we can do
send us
that.
a message. Absolutely. We will work
We
something
do
out with you.
birthday parties here for investigation, so they book it. We have people just spend the night. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we're not expensive.
And
We
if
do
you're not,
charge an arm and a leg.
and if you're not in the area, go to a classic movie theater in your
Yes.
town.
Yeah,
Go to
save all the
Go to
theaters.
the concert hall. Go to the historical society.
Yeah.
As I talked about in the episode where we talked about the double-edged sword of paranormal television, one of the good aspects of it has been being able to save a lot of locations by having events.
Yeah.
If the Clifton Theater did not have the events that they have and the investigations, we might not be sitting in an actual functioning business.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, a year
So-
ago we were in a lot
Yeah.
of trouble.
So support
like
these
6 months
places.
ago.
Yeah.
Small businesses.
It's important. The history is important, and it's not just for the paranormal history. Obviously, the spirits like having people around too.
Yeah.
Usually,
They like us.
I mean, we've investigated here. We're going to do it again, and I can tell you, I've got evidence that shows it.
Great EVPs last time.
You can also follow me at Ariel at the Clifton.
Yeah.
Yes, on TikTok. That is
TikTok, that's my
that's her handle, and she posts a lot of paranormal stuff
And
out
I go
there.
live all the time, and I show videos of me harassing her, so it's always fun.
Yeah, they're a fun follow on all the platforms. I recommend following them. Check out their YouTube video. Part 1 of their first video just came out. It's really good. And
Thanks to Colin. Colin did that
they're-
all by himself. Listen,
Yep.
we have no idea what we're doing. He did that all by himself.
And one of the things that, one of the reasons that we wanted to sit down with them, as I said in the beginning, and I'll repeat it again, there's 10,000 people doing this 10,000 ways. We do not investigate in the same way that Clifton Paranormal does, but we work together well. Why? Because
We're decent human beings.
the right people, we want to learn. They have stuff to teach us. We have stuff
Yeah.
that we can impart. And the paranormal community doesn't do enough of what people like Clifton Paranormal and us, for example, have done, where it's two very different styles, but
Yeah.
we work together. We talk together. We, Colin and I exchanged emails about stuff that had nothing to do with Clifton.
Yeah.
It's about uplifting each other. You know,
Oh
I mean,
yeah, the
we're a
paranormal.
community.
Yeah, on the paranormal fields, everybody's very angry at each other lately, and it's
Yeah.
just nothing but problems. And I try.
Do you know how many apology videos I've seen online of people just
yeah.
apologizing to each other
To being
because
mean?
they were mean at one
I-
point?
There's a lot
during
of drama.
something?
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't do that. We
Yeah,
don't
we're
get
not with
involved. If
that.
we don't like you, we just don't allow you back at the theater. And we don't like we said when we were telling the stories. We're not gonna really say names, but I mean, I think that everybody should be kind and loving to each other, just for this fact that this is a hard field, and people look at us like we're a bunch of freaks and weirdos. So we're all a bunch of freaks and weirdos together, and there's no need to put hate towards each other. This field is big enough when nobody has to fight like that.
That's actually good advice for the entire planet. And on that note, I will thank Kirsten, Ariel, and Colin for joining us on the Paranormal Podcast.
Thanks
It is
for
a
having
delight
us.
to be
Thank
back
you.
here. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being on with us. Check them out. They're great people, but they're also a great follower, and they're doing this for the right reasons, which is why we wanted to investigate, why we wanted to interview them, and why we want to investigate with them. So thank you all
you.
for being
Thank
on with
you.
us, and back to the office. So once again, want to thank Clifton Paranormal. It's always great to learn how different groups go about it. I have said many times, I said it in the interview and I'll say it again here, there are 10,000 paranormal groups doing this 10,000 different ways. And for me, it's always interesting to hear different methodologies, hear different people's journeys to this field, and experience different ways of doing things. There isn't enough of that in the paranormal community. There isn't enough where two groups with completely different methodologies can get together and work together and not spend most of the time, trying to convince the other one that their way is the right way. It was it's a great partnership that we had working with them last summer. It worked out really well again, and I'm super thankful for them for sitting down with us. And you can please find them on YouTube, on Facebook. Find them, watch their stuff. They just put out the first half of their first investigation episode. It's well done. Colin did a really good job putting that together. I can speak from experience. It is not easy to edit as many cameras and put together something that can hold your attention. So I urge you to go find them. and seek them out there, and go to the theater too. They do a lot of events at that theater. They've got some stuff coming up over the next couple weeks. Follow the Clifton 5 Theater on Facebook. The proceeds go to the theater, and as I said at the end of that interview, we have to work to save these kind of locations. The Clifton 5 Theater is an extremely haunted location, but it's also a very historical location. And the growth of these sort of AMC, these large theaters, are killing this kind of theater experience. It is worth it to go sit in this historic theater and watch a movie just to experience it. It's also worth it to go to some of their haunted events. They actually do bring in some big names to run those events. So please seek them out, support them, and because the support we get is fascinating and wonderful. And if you and please, the same folks in you guys can reach out, support them as well. We'd really appreciate it. But it's an interesting story they have. We all come to this field from a different place. We all come to it from a different, experience. And for their story to come from completely different places, completely different atmospheres, not only in terms of like one growing up in New York, another person growing up in Florida, and finding themselves in this area and forming a bond and a partnership that became Clifton Paranormal. And it's interesting, you grow up in different places, you grow up in a different world, and then you all start working together in a haunted location. And much like with Rhea, who we interviewed several weeks ago in another podcast, you go to get a job, and find out you're working in a haunted location, and for some of us, that would seem outrageous and extreme and nuts. For them, well, it's just normal. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Paranormal Podcast.